to come out of the woodwork from 36 years ago and 30 years ago and never mentioned it. All of a sudden it happens. In my opinion, it's totally political.
That was President Trump reiterating his support for Brett Kavanaugh this morning. With me now is Leigh Ann Caldwell, NBC News Capitol Hill reporter, who's been covering this story and the new allegation. And our panel, Nick Confessore, Susan Del Percio, and Jason Johnson are back. Leigh Ann, I want to start with you. We have a hearing that's set for Thursday with Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh. There's a new accuser. Any talk about having that new accuser testify on Thursday as well? Any talk about delaying the hearing? What's the latest?
Hey, Katie. Well, it depends on who you ask. There's a little bit of news that just came out. A spokesman for the Judiciary Committee on the Republican side said that the Republicans on that committee have reached out to Deborah Ramirez's attorney, not necessarily about appearing on Thursday, but as a preliminary inquiry and to see what she has to say. They say they haven't heard back from her attorney yet. As far as delay is concerned, there's some Democrats who have called for the committee to delay the hearing on Thursday. Senator Feinstein said it should be canceled, and some of the other Democrats on the committee have said the same. But Republicans are really digging in. We just heard moments ago from Senator Orrin Hatch walking into a meeting into Mitch McConnell's office. He called the latest allegations of Ramirez phony. And so most Republicans, except for these critical, undecided ones anyway, are really coming to Kavanaugh's defense at this 11th hour.
Susan, you're shaking your head at Orrin Hatch calling it phony. You shook your head at the president calling it all political. Why?
Because this is exactly what Republicans don't need. And if you want to see Kavanaugh go through this confirmation process, they need to shut up and not say stupid things. That's why. You do not attack someone who has made this complaint, who we know is going to go in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and offer testimony. That much is a done deal. Why you would attack that woman, I don't know, except that you're president of the United States and you like attacking women. That's what he does, at least verbally.
Where is the burden of proof here? Where does it lie? Because a moment ago, Senator Coons said the burden of proof lies on Judge Kavanaugh to prove that he's innocent, and that's not the way our legal system works.
So here's what's interesting about this, Katie. There is no burden of proof because it's a job interview, not a trial. And I think the problem here is that people are treating this, look, if you're going to make it a trial, then the FBI should get involved. And they should do a real thorough investigation, and then we can review that information. But since it's a job interview, which is really just people deciding, do I think this person is good enough for this position or not, people lose jobs based on what they put on social media. So this idea that they want to pretend that we have to have a thorough investigation sometimes, and sometimes it's about perception, is ridiculous. The senator is going to say whatever sort of political thing he needs to say, but at the end of the day, this is really just going to come down to perception. I find it disappointing that they treat something like a sexual assault allegation as if it's going to be a trial, but not give it a full trial.
Nick, what do you think?
We have no agreed-on process for evaluating these kinds of claims in this context. There's no playbook or set of rules. It is very ad hoc and is entirely political. The president is right on that. It is all political. And the audiences for these claims are the public and the senators. And what you see now is a series of blocking and delaying maneuvers. The point of getting the FBI involved is to get new facts into the discussion and to take some of the burden of proving or disproving off Judge Kavanaugh or his accusers. The point of having these testimonies, these hearings, is to create new facts and create some sense on which people can make a decision. But the decision is going to be based on each member and the public.
Leigh Ann, I want to ask you a question I asked Susan a little bit earlier. I'm curious about what changed with Republicans, because as late as last week, most Republicans were saying that they wanted to hear Dr. Ford out, that she should be given a chance to talk. Today, there's been a bit of a different tact in the way they're talking about these accusers. Since Ms. Ramirez came out and made her accusation, Republicans are calling this more of a big conspiracy on the part of the Democrats, that this is all political. What changed? And usually when there are more accusers, there's more credibility inferred on the accusations. It seems to have switched with the Republicans in this scenario. Why?
Yeah, it's been interesting, Katie, the way that they've handled the second accusation compared to the first. And they're still talking about the first accusation of Dr. Ford in the same way, saying that she needs to be heard. This allegation with Debbie Ramirez, they're saying that there's too many holes in it. They're pointing to the New York Times, this key paragraph in the New York Times that says that they could not corroborate the story after interviewing some 20 people. And so they saw that there was enough here to try to denounce or to take away from some of Ramirez's claims. And they're also questioning the way it came out. They're questioning that it came out in the New Yorker instead of through the committee or through some sort of investigation. And so they do see an opening. They see this as not as damaging as the first allegation. And the fact that they already allowed the hearing for Dr. Ford to move forward. And they're saying, look, we're giving her due process and we're giving her an opportunity to speak. And so we'll see where it goes on Thursday.
Do they have a point?
No, they really don't. And this is the thing. When you're talking about the New York Times, and I've said this before, if I get a call from a reporter, I may lie. I get a call from the FBI, I'm telling the truth. So the idea that they want to use the New York Times against Ramirez or possibly use that against Dr. Ford when they have the opportunity to bring the FBI in shows that they're disingenuous about wanting to have a legitimate hearing. That's also why you would have other witnesses. There's an easy way to solve this for everybody, and they're avoiding the most obvious way to make sure this is a fair hearing for everyone.
All right, but having Dr. Ford testifying, have other witnesses in her allegation come forward and testify under oath, I understand. But this is a woman, the second allegation is about she reached out to people, seeing if they remembered it. They did not, according to her. She was fuzzy on the details, didn't remember certain things, admitted they were drinking. It was a long time ago. There was nothing that corroborated what she said, even by her own admission. And I think that's a lot different. When it came to Dr. Ford, there was a testimony versus her couples therapy and other things along the way. This just is, I think, a case that does not need to go in front for a hearing.
So the Republicans are calling this a conspiracy, and they're saying the Democrats will do anything they can to stop this nomination. If that's the case, then why did the Democrats not do this to Neil Gorsuch?
Well, presumably that there were no allegations against him that came forward. Look, the effort to pin this on the Democrats is a way of taking the burden of politics off of the Republicans. So it's much easier to attack the Democrats for how this came about and for the process than to attack the accused. And I would just say, as far as the New York Times paragraph, the paragraph in the story is no more and no less than the facts that were able to be ascertained by Times reporters as of press time. It is not a definitive statement of all potential available facts. And the story in the New Yorker had more facts. And so people have to read the stories and decide for themselves.
Just because one news outlet can't confirm another news outlet.
Her own words. She said she could not.
But hold on, let me ask you one question about this. So, and I'm curious if you think this is a good thing or a bad thing. She says she spent several days thinking about what she remembered and what she did not remember and the accusations. She conferred with her lawyer, and she really thought about it before she came out. Some people point to that and say she spent several days looking at her memories. That's kind of questionable. What was she doing? Other people would say, listen, if you're gonna make an accusation like this, maybe you should spend several days in order to really dwell on your memories to make sure that you are correct.
But you can't rely on it. I'm sorry, but you can't rely on it, and it's so different than Dr. Ford's testimony. I mean, it just couldn't be more different in how.
I don't know. It feels like I'm sorry. I went to a party college, and this sort of scenario happened.
So did I, but I never saw that happen.
I think it's really key. It's not just conferring with your lawyers. It's also, if I'm going to do this, I've got to ask my significant others. I got to tell my job. I got to tell a whole lot of other people in my life, hey, I might be coming forward with this. Is this okay? Is this possible? And here's the thing. You know, it's this moving goalpost. First, it was, well, we don't know if this is true. All right, we'll let Ms. Ford come in. Then it was, well, there's only one accusation. Now you've got 2, possibly 3, possibly 4 different people coming forward. I have long said this. I bet you somewhere in Washington, D.C., there's somebody who can be a great Supreme Court justice who is a serious conservative who doesn't have any speculation like this in the background.
Yeah,
and that's ultimately what I think. That's what I think the Republicans should do.
Yeah, but then they would have to wait till after the midterms probably, and I think that's the sticking point. Leigh Ann, thank you so much for joining us. And panel, stay with us. Ahead, a big sign of a